Hello, I'm Kate Driver, naturopath and the perimenopause practitioner. And today I wanted to talk about why your blood tests or your labs look normal and your doctor has told you everything is normal, yet you know that there's something going on because you're fatigued, exhausted, and you have loads of symptoms that are annoying. And even though your blood tests look fine, you've been fobbed off by your doctor, you know that there's more to it. And this happens all the time, and you probably know this, but I have clients that I see every week, every day nearly, that come to me and have the same issue. And this is because blood tests are based on very sick people for a start, and the reference ranges are quite wide. So you could have a number in the reference range that you've been told that's normal, it's not high or low, and you can still get symptoms in that area. So, and this is because it's based on very sick people. So for instance, if you have a thyroid blood test and your TSH is in the normal range, if it's in the higher range and it's nearly near the cutoff of the reference range, then you can still be subclinical hypothyroid or underactive thyroid, because you're going to start getting symptoms years and years before that it will show up on a blood test. So just remember that by the time it shows up on a blood test, you've had an issue for a very long time generally, and that organ or that hormone or that nutrient is out of balance and can be quite severely out of balance. So you don't want to wait until it gets to that level and you know that you're getting symptoms before this happens, and it can happen years and years before. For example, if it's liver or kidneys or thyroid. So yes, it actually has a big scope, the reference range. So what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, and it also, the blood test doesn't necessarily show, well, it doesn't show what's happening at a tissue or cellular level. So depending what we're talking about, so I won't go into every little detail, but for instance, with the hormones, your progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, it's actually better to get them tested in saliva, because this tells us what is happening at a cellular level and what the ratios are and the different types of estrogen. And if you're getting them tested in blood, then this is only going to show us what's happening at that blood level and not exactly what's happening in the organs. So for instance, with endometriosis or something that's happening uterine, if that's in that tissue level, it may not show as clearly as it does in a salivary hormone test. And some people get urine tests as well, such as in Dutch tests, but I love the salivary hormone tests panels. And they give me a lot of insight into what's happening with the ratios and at a cellular level, and it can show us the different types of estrogen and what's happening there with these estrogens, rather than just having estradiol tested in your blood test. So that's another reason why you're still getting symptoms and your blood tests look normal. But there's also, these blood tests don't show us the communication between all of the endocrine or hormone producing organs, such as your adrenals and your thyroid and your liver and your kidneys. And it doesn't tell us the communication between all of those hormones as well, and the communication between the adrenals and the thyroid hormones and insulin and cortisol. And because in perimenopause and menopause, when the hormones are changing and fluctuating a lot, then this communication is going to be out of balance. Like an orchestra gets out of tune, it actually gets out of balance, and these hormones play out of tune. And once one is out of balance, then it can cause the others to go out of balance. So this is not necessarily going to show up on a blood test or just on a general check with your doctor. We want to look at that, say, standard blood tests don't show the ratios. I've talked about the ratios, just checking my notes here because I didn't want to miss anything. The active thyroid hormones, that's right. So the TSH is generally what they test, and TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. Now that's the hormone that's produced by the pituitary gland in in reaction to thyroid hormones in your body. So generally on a standard test, what they'll just test is TSH, and unless that's flagged as high or low, then the other two hormones, free T3 and free T4, aren't going to necessarily get tested. But what you need to do is ask your doctor, please test these as well. I want something thorough tested because I am in this stage of my life, and it's very, very common for women over the age of 40 to start getting subclinical hypothyroidism, where your thyroid starts slowing down enough for you to get symptoms. And this is not necessarily going to be tested unless you, and I call it harassing, because you really need to be assertive and talk to your doctor and say, I really would like a thorough blood test. So that's another reason. And like I was saying with the salivary hormone test, they don't test the ratios between the estrogen and progesterone, which is done more in a salivary hormone test. And it doesn't also look at at your adrenal function as well. And adrenals are really, by the general medical practitioners, are really only an issue if there's Addison's disease or Cushing's syndrome, which is actually two adrenal diseases. Then apart from that, they'll just consider your adrenals being okay. Now, you may get cortisol tested in a blood test, but generally it's higher in a blood test anyway, because you're going through that procedure of having your arm jabbed and getting your blood taken, and it can actually elevate it because you're probably slightly anxious when you're getting a blood test anyway. So again, salivary hormones are great to check things like cortisol and DHEA, which can help us with your adrenal function. And the adrenal glands are the glands that are helping regulate your energy and your stress response, and helping your hormones stay more in balance, particularly when you get to menopause and your ovaries aren't doing their job like they did. Then your adrenals need to be really strong. So many women enter perimenopause and menopause with weakened adrenals and subclinical hypothyroidism and get all these terrible symptoms. And then the other thing that's missed generally is the lifestyle. Look at, hardly any doctors ask about your lifestyle and what's happening there, and that gut-brain connection and the gut hormone connection. And if there's gut inflammation, or if your diet isn't great, or if there's a lot of stress, then this is going to have a big influence on your hormones and the way you feel, and drain your energy and drain your stores of energy. And particularly if you're not sleeping well, which most women are, and you might be one of those as well, then this is going to cause big issues with energy. So there's not many blood tests that actually look at all this together and look at, okay, well, what's happening with your sleep? Let's test melatonin. They don't generally test melatonin or serotonin, which is one of your happy hormones, but that's a precursor to your sleep hormone, melatonin. And they don't look at things like that microbiome and the gut hormone connection and inflammation in your gut, unless you have some severe gut or intestinal issues, and they won't test something like calprotectin, which is an inflammatory gut marker. But they generally do test C-reactive protein and ESR, which are inflammatory markers in the blood, but these have to be quite extreme and aren't showing all forms of inflammation. So this is a big issue, and that's why one reason I became a naturopath 25 years ago is because I had issues in my early 20s with not getting any answers from doctors, and having loads of tests and loads of specialists, and then found, oh, okay, well, naturopaths have started to help me. They've got the answers. They look a bit more thoroughly. They look outside the square and don't just look at your pathology tests. Not that they're not helpful. They are helpful. But if you're getting symptoms and you don't have answers, then you may need to look outside of that, those pathology blood tests, and see someone like myself, a naturopath, or some sort of natural therapist that can look a little bit deeper. And we're looking at the cause of your symptoms rather than just treating the symptoms for long-term benefits. And if you would like to know some more, then I will put a link below for my free guide about how you can restore your energy and why you're so exhausted, and how to ditch that hormone drama that you're annoyingly having to go through at this stage of your life. So check out the link below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. And I will jump off now, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.